Gang members shoved the girl into a pit at Yorktown, but she plotted her payback. Delia Eisenhower had been at Crestwood Academy for barely a month when the remodeling began. The ancient library was being modernized, and a good portion of the grounds was barricaded off with bright yellow tape and wooden barriers. Pupils were told to steer clear of the area, but everyone knew teenagers snuck through there anyway to shorten their route to their classes. Delia knew this because she had observed it, studying, learning the patterns of this institution, just like she had learned to do at every prior institution. Delia was short in height, maybe reaching 5'3", with auburn hair that she usually wore in a single braid down her back, and outfits that were practical but clearly handed down. Her folks had relocated to the village when her mother accepted a position at the community hospital, and Delia had become skilled at being unnoticeable. She kept her gaze down, spoke only when questioned, and made an effort to vanish into the backdrop of notice boards and hallways. What nobody at Crestwood Academy understood was that Delia had spent the prior 5 years practicing in judo at her old gymnasium. Her former neighborhood had a local YMCA where a retired sergeant named Mrs. Abigail ran classes for children at no cost, and Delia had been her most faithful student. She'd attained her green belt in judo and had participated in district matches before the change of address. Though here, in this fresh setting, she had promised herself and her parents to begin anew, to try being ordinary, to prevent the altercations that had gotten her into difficulty previously. The taunting began on her 4th day. Madison Bellwether was the big fish of her form, fashionable and desired, with a group of supporters who followed her every action. Madison had spotted Delia immediately, like vultures spot vulnerable animals, and had decided that the reticent newbie was a simple person to bully. "Have a look at her blazer," Madison had spoken loudly enough for Delia to hear as she walked past their lunchtime table. "I believe my infant cousin owned those exact ones in primary school." Delia had continued onward, her complexion heating with humiliation. She had realized years prior that reacting only made things worse, and she was determined to keep her commitment regarding preventing difficulties. The tormenting increased during the subsequent days. Madison and her entourage, which included 2 additional females named Tiffany and Giselle, made it their objective to make Delia's days terrible. They'd push her in the corridors, knock her folders out of her arms, and make boisterous remarks regarding her fashion sense any time she was within earshot. "Oh gosh, did anyone observe what she put on yesterday?" Tiffany would announce, gazing directly at Delia. "I felt so sad for her, I nearly donated a couple of my old clothes to her." Delia endured it silently. She'd consume her lunch alone in the music room, take the lengthy route to classes to prevent the main corridors, and try to time her travels to ensure she wouldn't cross paths with Madison's group. Though Crestwood Academy wasn't that vast, and eventually there was nowhere remaining to conceal oneself. The worst aspect was that instructors seemed oblivious to what was occurring. Ms. Hawthorne, Delia's math teacher, would praise her numbers, though never saw how Delia winced when Madison and her associates whispered and chuckled behind her. Mr. Carlson, the sports teacher, was occupied with his best players to notice that Delia always opted to sit alone during team sports. Other pupils watched, though never got involved. Delia understood why. Madison's clique had influence, and going against them implied becoming a potential target yourself. She'd witnessed it take place at other schools. The bystanders weren't wicked, they were only looking after themselves. Although Delia's control was weakening. Every evening she'd return home and practice her judo movements in the backyard, working through the sequences and methods that Mrs. Abigail had ingrained in her. Her parents noticed her stress, though attributed it to the ordinary challenges of beginning at a new school. They were unaware their daughter was battling a mental war between her vow to prevent difficulties and her growing yearning to retaliate. The breaking moment arrived on a stormy Wednesday in November. Delia had been attempting to prevent the main hallway between forms, so she had made the decision to walk through the remodeling site. She understood it was against the regulations, though she was desperate to prevent another encounter with Madison's posse. The location was mainly deserted, just some planks and a large pit in the ground where they were setting up new cables. The biting wind whistled through the gaps in the unfinished walls. Delia was nearly clear when she noticed the familiar sound of Madison's laugh echoing behind her. "Well, well, well, look at who we have here," Madison called out, her voice dripping with false friendliness. "The tiny mouse believes she can sneak around where she isn't allowed to be." Delia's stomach dropped. She turned to face Madison, Tiffany, and Giselle, who had created a semicircle blocking her direction back to the main corridor. The pit was behind her, around 7 feet across and 5 feet deep, with bare dirt and metal supports that looked jagged and hazardous. "I was just attempting to reach my class," Delia spoke quietly, wishing to calm the circumstance. "Oh, you were just attempting to reach your class," Madison mimicked, copying Delia's tone. "How adorable. Though you know what? I don't believe you belong here. I don't believe you belong anywhere, in fact." The 3 females moved nearer, and Delia felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that arrived prior to a confrontation. Though she pushed it aside, remembering her vow, remembering all the difficulty fighting had caused her previously. "Please, I just wish to attend my class," Delia said, taking a step back. The smell of wet concrete and freshly turned earth filled her nostrils. "Please, I just wish to attend my class," Tiffany echoed in a whining tone, and all 3 females chuckled. "Do you know what your issue is?" Madison said, her tone growing harsh. "You're ridiculous. You're fragile. You only take everything we give and never retaliate. It's actually a little sad." Delia's hands closed into fists at her sides, though she forced herself to relax them. "I don't desire any difficulties." "Too bad," Giselle said, stepping forward, "because difficulty has found you." What transpired next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Madison gave Delia a firm shove backward, and Delia tripped, her feet sliding on the dusty soil. She tried to regain her footing, though Tiffany bumped her from the side, and Giselle grabbed her shoulder bag, pulling her further off balance. "Stop it!" Delia yelled, though Madison only chuckled. "Make us!" Madison taunted, and then she pushed Delia with both hands. Delia fell backward into the pit, her arms flailing as she attempted to catch herself. She landed awkwardly on her side, the thump knocking the wind out of her lungs. Jagged pieces of earth scraped her arms and legs, and she felt something moist on her forehead where she had hit a metal bar. The earthy smell of the pit filled her senses. Above her, the 3 females peered down into the pit, their faces displaying a mix of happiness and slight anxiety. "Oops," Madison said with false innocence. "Seems like little Delia had a mishap." Delia lay there for a moment, tasting blood in her mouth, feeling the burn of scrapes on her arms and the throbbing of bruises forming on her ribs. She had promised herself she'd prevent difficulties, promised her folks she'd attempt to be ordinary, promised that she'd leave her fighting times behind. Although as she gazed up at the 3 faces grinning down at her, something snapped. The promise she had made to herself suddenly seemed less significant than the vow she'd made to Mrs. Abigail years prior. Never allow anyone to bully you when you possess the capacity to prevent them. Delia wiped the blood from her forehead and slowly rose to her feet. Every muscle in her body ached, though underneath the pain, she felt something additional: clearness, purpose, the familiar calm that came prior to a fight. "Are you all right down there?" Tiffany called down, her tone full of fake concern. "Perhaps you ought to be more cautious where you're walking." Delia gazed up at them and smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. "Actually," she said, her tone carrying a self-assurance that hadn't existed previously, "I believe I'm precisely where I ought to be." She found a place to grip on one of the bare pipes and began to ascend out of the pit. The three females watched, their expressions shifting from amusement to confusion as Delia emerged from the pit like something ascending from the earth. "What are you doing?" Madison demanded, though there was something in her tone that hadn't existed previously. Uncertainty. Delia brushed the soil and concrete chips from her clothes and gazed at each of the three females in turn. "I'm through with being bullied." "Oh, please," Madison scoffed, though she took a step backward. "What are you going to do? You're worthless. You're fragile." Delia's smile widened. "Do you know what? You're correct. I was fragile. Though not because I couldn't retaliate, I was fragile because I was too scared to stand up for myself." She took a step forward, and all three females instinctively stepped back. "Do you see? This is the thing you don't know regarding me," Delia continued, her tone steady and calm. "I have been training in judo for 5 years. I have a green belt in judo, and I have won various district fighting matches. I didn't retaliate because I was attempting to be a better person, attempting to prevent difficulties. Though do you know what I learned today?" She took another step forward, and Madison bumped into the wall behind her. "Sometimes difficulty finds you anyway, and when it does, you had better be prepared to manage it." Madison's complexion had gone pale. "You're lying. You're only attempting to frighten us." Delia shrugged. "Perhaps. Though, are you willing to bet on it?" The three females gazed at one another, and Delia could see the uncertainty creeping into their expressions. They had been so certain of their influence, so confident in their capacity to intimidate her. Though now, confronted with someone who wasn't backing down, they weren't sure what to do. "Listen," Amanda said, her tone less confident than previously. "We were only messing around. We didn't intend for you to get hurt." "Oh, though you did," Delia answered. "You certainly did. You pushed me into that pit, hoping I'd get hurt. You desired me to be scared and humiliated. Well, congratulations. You got what you desired." She rotated her shoulders, loosening the muscles that had been tense for weeks. "Though now it's my turn." Madison straightened up, attempting to regain her composure. "You can't do anything to us. There are 3 of us and 1 of you, and if you touch us, we'll tell everyone you attacked us for no reason." Delia nodded thoughtfully. "You're correct. There are 3 of you, and normally that would be a problem for most people, though I'm not most people." She moved faster than any of them expected. One moment she was standing 4 feet away, and the next she was directly in front of Madison, close enough that Madison could see the small cut on her forehead still bleeding. "Here's what's going to occur," Delia said quietly. "You're going to apologize, all 3 of you, and then you're going to leave me alone forever." Madison's bravado cracked. "You can't make us do anything." "Can't I?" Delia asked, and before Madison could react, Delia's hand shot out and carefully though firmly held Madison's wrist. She applied just enough pressure to demonstrate control, utilizing a method Mrs. Abigail had taught her for restraining opponents without causing harm. "Let go of me," Madison demanded, though her tone was shaky. "In a moment," Delia said calmly. "First, I desire to make certain you understand something. I spent 5 years learning how to defend myself because I was through with being bullied. I learned methods that can stop someone double my size. I learned how to utilize leverage and skill to make up for what I lack in size and strength. I learned how to protect myself." She maintained her controlled grip on Madison's wrist, and Madison shifted uncomfortably. "I also learned when to fight and when to walk away. For a month, I chose to walk away. I chose to be the bigger person. I chose to attempt to manage this peacefully. Though do you know what? You didn't desire peace. You desired me to be a victim." Delia released Madison's wrist and stepped back. Madison rubbed her wrist, staring at Delia with a mix of fear and disbelief. "So here's your choice," Delia continued. "You can apologize right now, and we can all walk away from this, or you can keep pushing, and I'll show you exactly what 5 years of judo training looks like." Tiffany and Giselle were already backing toward the exit, though Madison stood her ground, her pride warring with her fear. "You wouldn't dare," Madison said, though her tone lacked conviction. Delia sighed. "You really don't get it, do you? You believe this is regarding being tough or proving something, though it's not. It's regarding respect, and right now you have 2 choices. You can give me the respect I deserve, or I can take it." She shifted her stance slightly, dropping into a defensive position that was subtle, though unmistakable to anyone who knew what to look for. Her weight shifted to the balls of her feet, her hands relaxed though ready, her center of gravity lowered. Madison's eyes widened as she recognized the change in Delia's posture. This wasn't the scared, reticent girl she had been tormenting. This was someone who understood how to defend herself. "Okay," Madison said quickly. "Okay, I'm sorry." "We're sorry. It was only a joke that went too far." Delia shook her head. "No, it wasn't a joke. It was bullying. It was cruel. And it was meant to hurt me. If you are going to apologize, at least be honest regarding what you are apologizing for." Madison's complexion flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Fine. We bullied you. We were mean to you. We pushed you into that pit because we wanted to hurt you. Are you happy now?" "I'm not happy," Delia said. "I'm disappointed. Disappointed that it took me getting hurt for you to finally be honest. Disappointed that you needed to be confronted before you'd display basic human decency. Though I'm not surprised." She gazed at each of the 3 females in turn. "Here's what's going to occur now. You're going to leave me alone. You're going to stop making comments regarding my outfits, my fashion sense, or anything else regarding me. You're going to treat me like a human being, or you're going to ignore me completely. Those are your only 2 options." "And if we don't?" Tiffany asked, her tone small. Delia's smile was cold. "Then you'll find out what occurs when you bully someone who has spent 5 years learning how to defend themselves." The 3 females exchanged glances, and Delia could see the moment they made their decision. The influence dynamic that had defined their relationship for a month had completely shifted, and they all knew it. "We'll leave you alone," Madison said quietly. Delia nodded. "Good. Now get out of here before I change my mind regarding being reasonable." The 3 females hurried toward the exit, whispering among themselves as they left. Delia watched them go, then slowly sank down to sit on a piece of planking. The adrenaline finally leaving her system, the air smelled of damp wood and raw earth. She gazed down at her scraped arms and torn clothes, then at the pit she had fallen into. For the first time in weeks, she felt like herself again. Not the scared, reticent girl who had been attempting to blend in, though Delia Eisenhower, the girl who had attained her green belt through discipline and hard work, who had learned to stand up for herself and others. The next day at school, word had spread regarding what transpired in the remodeling site. Delia wasn't sure how much of the story was accurate, though she noticed that other pupils gazed at her differently. Some with curiosity, some with respect, and a few with wariness, though none with pity. Madison and her associates gave her a wide space, barely acknowledging her presence in the corridors. Delia was fine with that. She had never desired to be their friend. She had only desired to be left alone, though something unexpected occurred in the days that followed. Other pupils began approaching her, people who had been reticent and withdrawn, who had kept to themselves the way Delia had. They didn't say much, though they'd nod when they passed her in the hallways or sit at nearby tables in the cafeteria. Delia realized that she wasn't the only one who had been attempting to be unnoticeable. A week later, Delia was consuming her lunch in the cafeteria when a younger pupil named Kevin approached her table. He was small in height, with heavy glasses and a nervous demeanor that reminded Delia of herself from years prior. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "Are you Delia Eisenhower?" Delia nodded, wondering what he desired. "I heard regarding what transpired with Madison and her associates," Kevin said, glancing around nervously. "I was wondering, do you believe you could teach me how to stand up for myself? I mean, I understand you know judo and stuff, and I was thinking maybe—" Delia gazed at the young man, seeing her younger self in his hopeful though scared expression. She considered Mrs. Abigail, who had taken time out of her schedule to teach pupils like her at no cost. She considered the vow she had made to herself to prevent difficulties and how keeping that vow had nearly gotten her seriously hurt. "I'll consider it," she said finally. "Though, Kevin, you don't need to know judo to stand up for yourself. Sometimes you just need to remember that you're worth standing up for." Kevin smiled, the first genuine smile Delia had seen from another pupil since arriving at Crestwood Academy. "Thanks. I'll remember that." As Delia watched him walk away, she realized that her experience with Madison and her associates had taught her something significant. Being strong wasn't regarding preventing conflict or regarding dominating others. It was regarding knowing when to fight and when to walk away, when to display mercy and when to stand firm. It was regarding respecting yourself enough to demand respect from others. She'd never be the reticent, unnoticeable girl again, though she'd also never be the kind of person who utilized her strength to hurt others the way Madison had hurt her. She had found a middle ground, a place where she could be both strong and kind, both confident and humble. The smells of cafeteria food, stale pizza and overcooked fries seemed less oppressive than before. Delia finished her lunch and headed to her next form, walking with her head up and her shoulders back. She wasn't hiding anymore, and she wasn't looking for trouble, though if trouble found her again, she was ready for it. And more significantly, she was ready to help others who might not be ready to face their own troubles alone. The girl who had fallen into that pit a month ago was gone. In her place was someone stronger, not because she could fight, though because she had learned that sometimes the most significant battle is the one you fight for yourself. The sunlight streaming through the high windows seemed to illuminate her path forward. 19,039 characters.